Hi! I want to start off by apologizing for any strangeness with the video. I'm on winter break and couldn't take my beefy video editing computer with me, so here's a secret about my dark artist past. I used to be really into the My Little Pony Tumblr Ask blog community. I made a lot of blogs based off of canon characters and only a tiny few original character blogs. One of these original character blogs was called The Void Ponies. These were a group of ponies who all found their way into a gap between universes and decided to live there. All of them came from their own worlds. Most of their backstories were fully original, but some of them really were not. The blog only updated a handful of times, but I never forgot these characters. They kept popping up over and over again as I struggled to find a place for them in my stories until finally, I somehow came full circle back to a multiverse Ask blog. But I've since left the My Little Pony fandom, which means these fellas need to be blasted with the human beam. And some of their stories are harder to convert into a non-My Little Pony world than others. So let's go through them easiest to hardest. And also the unintentional correlation with least cringe to most cringe. Not a huge deal. We accept and admire cringe around here. I promise it is just going to be hard for me to share it. I have a few ground rules to establish with these redesigns. First, I like their stories and I don't want them to change too much. Same goes for their personalities. I have to keep as much of their stories intact as I can. This will become basically impossible very quickly. Second, I want to try and stay true to their original colors. One little trick that I might as well share with you is when I humanize animals, I pick their main fur color, then I set the canvas to grayscale, and I test out human skin tones until I get one that is the exact same lightness or darkness value is the term I'm looking for, as their fur. Then I use that as their human skin tone. And this is something that I did in the video. It's not a proper speed paint, it's just a Eclipse Studio Paint time lapse, but you'll see me do this in the recording. And third, I have a bunch of different designs for these guys. They've been around for like 10 years or so I have their pony designs, some redesigns of their pony forms I made in Ponytown shortly before I made their newest human forms. And yes, in the past, they have been given human designs. I had one that I made on the base that I used for most of my webcomic characters, or at least I did back during the time when I made these human designs. And I also found an old pixel art base edit of these characters that I completely forgot about, and I actually redid that one in this video. You will see that one. I'm using all of these past designs to inspire their new ones, except for Halfheart's, because his design feels appropriative in a very uncomfortable way, especially with what his pony backstory originally was. That one will not be used or shown in this video. Okay, you ready? Let's do this. Guy number 1 and 2. We're starting off with Cole and Snow, the yin-yang inspired twins. So the reason why these two were so easy is they've never had a story to begin with. I had an idea for a set of characters and I made that design idea and went, yeah, good enough. So while they might not have had a story, I did give myself one breadcrumb to follow. They got their cutie marks while researching. Now, why would that happen? And why were these 10-year-olds reading a book on Taoism? And why would that have given them their special talent? Something about that book and that research had to have been it. What if their special talent was for researching cultures? And Taoism is from before the Common Era. So what if their talent was for archaeology? That's right, baby. I'm sticking these two into some Indiana Jones type shenanigans. So one thing about these two is, while they're almost identical twins, they're also opposites of each other. Snow is a geeky bookworm and Cole is a radical smug type. And while I may be completely redesigning these characters and changing their backstories, I still want their personalities to stay relatively untouched. So the way I've interpreted their personality is as two halves of the requirements for a successful archaeological dig. Snow does all the research, planning, and analysis, while Cole is the athletic type who can get doors open, do demo if needed, like if an entrance is blocked or something, she's not blowing up the historical artifacts, and to get into hard-to-access areas. Of course, they're not completely one note, and they still help each other if need be, and of course, they're both complete dorks for anthropology. The way I'm bringing them into the multiverse world is by having them dedicate their lives to exploring different multiverses and their cultures. Their favorite universe to stumble across is one full of ruins with no easy answers, so they have to puzzle everything out for themselves. I tried to keep their half and half color scheme as best as I could when humans don't really do that. Vitiligo tends to mirror itself, and I don't think this sort of bisecting would really happen, but these two are identical twins, so I'm just gonna say something weird happened in utero or something. Oh, yeah, so these two are identical, and yet one of them is a girl and one of them is a guy. That can only mean one thing. Snow, you're trans now. I tried to leave little references to their pony designs and their new designs as well. I kept their color scheme mostly monochromatic, and I gave each of their eyes a slight tint toward the original eye colors while still keeping them close enough to, be identical twinsy enough. And I also gave Snow a red tie for his old red and green eyes, and I gave Cole some gold accents for her old orange and blue eyes. And now that they're complete, it's time to give them some more human names. I struggled a lot with naming these two. I wanted their names to still mean white and black, but a little less obviously. And I still wanted it to flow to say out loud. Eventually I settled on Melanie, Mel, meaning dark, and Uriah, Yuri, meaning God's light. Melanie and Uriah is a little tough to say, but Mel and Yuri works great. So I'm happy with these changes. Be free to explore your dead universes, you two. The next easiest character is only above Mel and Yuri because he has a great character building element to his design that is specific to having a cutie mark. It's him, the one, the only, the character who actually had his own blog for a while and has always been my favorite of the bunch, don't tell the rest, Patchup. So, Patch is a vampire. I thought I was being so sneaky about it and was going to have such a dramatic reveal about it later in the story when this is how I introduced him. Yeah, real subtle. They'll never guess what that means. This is just like how people already managed to guess who Shut up! Okay, so I love a good angst, psychological horror experiencing sad boy, and Patch is all of those. Patch was a doctor and a prodigy of one as well. Unfortunately, he had a run-in with a vampire that ended with him being bit and cursed. In his world, vampires go into fits of bloodlust during their transformation, and unfortunately, Patch happened to be next to his friend trying to figure out why he was feeling so wrong when the curse manifested. When Patch came to, he was standing above the bloody corpse of his best and only friend. That's this guy in his head in the Ponytown sprite, by the way. He was devastated and basically gave up on life after that. He quit his job, decided to live in seclusion until he ran out of money, and refused to ever practice any sort of medicine again. He violated his Hippocratic oath in the worst way possible, after all. And so, and this is the part where it becomes hard to give up his pony side. Also, skip ahead about 20 seconds to avoid mentions of self-harm. I'll give you a couple seconds to do so. Ready? Okay. In this state of giving up on the idea of ever being a doctor, he carved his cutie mark out. That's why sometimes his cutie mark is band-aids and sometimes it's a red X. The X is, and always has been, scar tissue. Doctoring was his special talent, and he didn't think he deserved to have it anymore. That's such a powerful and tragic character moment, and it pains me to give it up, but alas, it must be done to give him a second chance at having his story told. I barely had to change Patchup's design, if I'm being honest. His coat color was already just a viable skin color, so I used it straight up. I did lighten his hair just a tad, just to both make it less saturated and easier on the eyes, as well as making it easier to see any line art details. My style is the eyes are so big they have to be drawn through the hair or you won't be able to tell what anyone is feeling, so line art visibility is an important thing to consider. I let him have some pointy vampire ears as a treat. He didn't have anything like that in his pony form, but I would want to at least get pointy ears if I had to drink blood forever, like as a consolation prize. Patch's name has been set for a while, but also it's probably the easiest one to pick. His name is Patrick, Pat for short. It's literally just his name, but I removed a few letters. Patrick. And the friend of his dead friend, Rain. What? Okay, so this guy never actually showed up on the Void Ponies blog, but I got incredibly close to introducing him. He was even hinted at and name dropped a few times, but his name is Lightning Rain. He's a friend of the friend that Pat killed during his bloodlust. He's a shockingly understanding guy and a really kind soul. He's the one who manages to get Pat to stop spiraling and start to get back on his feet. A resolve that doesn't waver even after he learns what Pat did to their mutual friend. He's not any sort of supernatural, he's just a guy, but he's the guy Pat needed at his lowest moment. So then I had him be kidnapped by another member of the Void Ponies and brainwashed into turning against the group. Something about being fed rainbow juice or something, I don't know. We'll get into that character's deal very soon. I mentioned I like psychological horror, right? There it is again. I may still have something like that happen to him in this human version of the story, but not until after Pat finds his way into the multiverse. For now, he's just the human friend helping his vampire friend through learning he accidentally did one of the worst things a person could do to someone. I tried to make Rain visibly more physically fit. Pat and his friends are both doctors, and Rain really isn't, so making him less brains and more brawn would really help sell that aspect of his character. I also opted to make his hair be bleached blonde rather than naturally that color. You can see it in his eyebrows, if they're ever visible under his bangs. Again, huge eye art style moment. I tried to give him darker eyes too, but I couldn't give up that electric blue. Not when his name is Lightning Rain. So I gave him some internal heterochromia so he gets to have both the darker eyes I wanted and the cooler looking blue eyes. His outfit is basically exactly the same as the first human design, which is really funny. He just unbuttoned his shirt and rolled his jeans up. Rain is so close to a human name, just like Patches. So if I follow that path to pick his human name, Rain is now... Rain. It's short for Reagan, so it's technically a more valid human name. If you couldn't tell by the sudden rainbow juice interjection in Rain's story, we're now reaching the part of the video where the characters become really hard to turn into humans. Our next guy, Halfheart, is one of those characters. Halfheart! My baby boy, my sweet, excitable, naive little guy. He's the character who people were introduced to first, and is the most positive person you'll ever meet. He also has a tragic backstory, dun dun dun. His whole concept as a pony is that he's a pony, but a carnivore. He's from a world where ponies and wolves have reversed roles, basically. Ponies roam in packs and hunt wild game, and Halfheart was the runt of his pack. He was constantly picked on for not being tough enough and for being too cute, for lack of a better word. His story doesn't go much deeper than that, aside from giving him a reason to want to live in the space between universes rather than with his own pack. But that bare bones story gives me nothing to work off of when turning him into a human. Like what? He's a meat eater? Okay, so are people. He's not special. His entire story is basically pointless the second he becomes a species that already eats meat. So, okay, what parts of his story make him unique as a character? He has really sharp teeth because he's carnivorous, and that's his most striking feature, so I need to keep those somehow. He's from a pack, one that hunts animals in groups and would see an issue with a character who prefers not to go out hunting. And I have a vampire in this story already. Oh my god, he's a werewolf. Yes, yes, yes! And if he's a werewolf who has been one long enough to feel secure in his werewolfiness, then he can be an emotional support supernatural for Pat, who is still devastated by what he's done and not happy with being a vampire. His self-confident attitude is plot relevant now. Okay, so now I have a whole ass wolf design added onto my to-do list. At least I finally, after like 5 years of pondering, came up with a viable backstory for him. So anyway, I made him a bear. Like, if I'm gonna make this guy a hairy beast form, I might as well commit and give him a lot of body hair in his human form too. And of course he gets to keep his sharp teeth in his human form. Who do you think he is? A human not inspired by a pony who eats meat? I really love Halfheart's eyes. I think I made them pure black to indicate he's supposed to be a predator, but I don't remember the logic. But then I put the little rubber hose cartoon slice into it, and it just adds so much charm to this design. Like, that's so unique. No other character I have has eyes like that. I really love his new design. I kept his cutie mark by having him wear both halves of a BFF necklace, and that just tickles me for some reason. I don't know why. But I get to have a character in a crop top, which always makes my day better. Halfheart looks like he's on his way to the club, which gives his personality a totally fresh interpretation rather than just, oh, he's naive. Now this guy is like this because he likes to party. Oh, and also, I really hated the gray hair I gave him in his pony design, so instead of using that saturation, I split the color and gave him dark hair with a white streak. If you blend it out, it equals the original brightness of his hair. Probably. Halfheart's name was probably the hardest one to pick, and it's the furthest one from his original concept. I ended up naming him Hutch. It's not the most logical progression of a pony name to human name, but something about Hutch just feels like it fits a werewolf, you know? Maybe it's because of the rabbit connection. It's a name that feels like it's made out of wicker and lives in the woods. Okay, here we go. We're getting into the really difficult territory now. Let's go to... I wanted to save her for last because she's so cringy, but let's do Sunny next. Sunny Smiles is... Okay, there's no easy way to say this. Does anyone remember that My Little Pony creepypasta fan game, Story of the Blanks? The one where a small village hates the concept of cutie marks, so they sacrifice a town member who got one and got cursed into zombies as a consequence of their actions? Yeah, okay, so that one, but also, Cupcakes. Yeah, that Cupcakes. So Sunny was actually taken from a fan comic I made following Rainbow Dash post Cupcakes, but who also met Rainbow Dash's fate. What was left of their bodies was dumped in the ever-free forest and found by the Sunnytown residents, where they piece them together and bring them back to life, using a little skin grafting to remove their cutie marks because naturally having them isn't allowed. It is the most middle school edge piece of fiction I have ever written, and I definitely still have it hanging around somewhere if I feel like having a laugh with you all. We'll see. It does get cringier. Yeah. I do love it though. I got so far and I tried to clear Pinkie Pie's name because she was my favorite and I didn't want her to be the villain of the series. Sunny is a kind and gentle soul who just happened to have her number be drawn and then was dumped in the wrong place at the wrong time. Sunnytown tried to convince the revived ponies to stay, but it didn't really work. She wasn't originally a member of the Void Ponies, but I loved her name and design enough to bring her into the cast. As for how I'm going to humanize her story, there's definitely going to be a ritual murder and some necromancy involved, but I haven't really figured out the specifics. Fortunately, none of what I used to create her backstory took from the parts of her inspirations that are inseparable from My Little Pony, and she's so sweet that maybe the person who brought her back to life is actually someone who loved her and wanted her back rather than some cursed town who just happened upon her body. I think that fits her better. But I'm just spitballing. In the fan comic I made, the revived ponies could disguise themselves as alive just like the blanks could, so I gave Sunny two forms, her normal living form and her zombie form. The zombie form sucks a lot of her color out and makes her look more visibly dead. Her skin is yellower and dull, her clothes are darkened with grime and frayed at the edges. Her eyes are black and red, and, of course, glowing. I may be removing her creepypasta origin story, but I can still have some fun with the tropes, can't I? It's not a crime. And, of course, there are the scars. Sunny's name being Sunny Smiles gave her killer some good inspiration for how to torment her, and her face is marked by a grin literally carved into her face, Joker style. Though her being sewn together after death means that any part of her body that is scarred is just being held together by whatever thread was used to stitch her up. Despite her horrific appearance, she's still gentle and kind, and her big billowy sweater hopefully helps to balance out the zombie-ness of her everything. Sunny also just has a human name, so I didn't need to do much to figure out a human name for her. This is Sunny, she's Sunny, that's still her name. Also, it is very funny that I have two characters in this named Rain and Sunny, and yet their stories are not in any way related. And now we reach the characters I have zero clue on how to remove the My Little Pony origins from. And it's happened again! The middle school mega edgy era book is seeping into the story. This is Flower. She was one of the original members of the Void Ponies group, and she was a Rainbow Factory worker in disguise. Yeah, you're counting that right. That's 3 separate My Little Pony creepypastas I referenced in this cast list. And this one is by far the hardest because, I mean, the concept of grinding something into rainbows that's only something that could come from a world where everyone is a sparkly magical pony. And this is kind of where I'm stuck. Rainbow Factory is about eugenics. I'm not sure if that's something I want to pursue in my For Fun Tumblr Ask blog. So what I can say is I want to at least keep some of the bones of Flower and the next character in this list story the same, but I haven't fully figured out which bones yet. So going back to her original story, Flower is the one who brainwashed Lightning Rain by feeding him Rainbow Factory Universe rainbow juice. Oh, that's darker than Kid B realized, I think. She found her way into the void between universes and got so welcomed into this group that she didn't really have the energy to do anything but go along with it. And that's kind of where she is at the start of the Void Ponies blog, in limbo and trying to figure out how to use the void for her own gain. And I think that's where she'll be in her human form as well. She stumbled across an infinite supply of whatever it is her world collects or something, and she's trying to figure out how to get it back to her home in the most efficient way possible. As for appearance, so Flower looks a lot like a certain other character of mine. Like, a lot like a certain other character of mine. And that certain other character of mine looks a lot like my fan design for Kara Davies from the Avalon Web of Magic series. Kara walked so Flower could fly, so Phyllis could sprint. Basically what I'm saying is these three have the same goddamn hairstyle, and Phyllis already got to keep hers, which means that Flower needs to change. I can be mean to her because she's a villain. I ended up going with a more business-like outfit for her. After all, she is all business, usually. She's strict, professional, and just as underhanded as the average high-income businessman, and I made sure that her outfit matched that. I'm also letting this universe have winged humans because, I mean, wings. Thumbs up. I'll take 20 winged humanoids, please. Oh, thank you for this copy of The Croaking. I have a one interest, and it's webcomics. And tails, because I like drawing tails more than tail feathers. Okay, so these guys are just animal from Power Pills, but canonized as a species rather than just a hashtag shape-shifting power fail. Oh my god, can you tell I'm writing this part of the script at 4:30 a.m.? Hashtag shape-shifting power fail. And Flower is almost a human name. I just, have to pick a flower. And I went with Rose. Well, Daisy could probably match her hair more, and I'm sure there are some pink flowers that I am missing. I like that a rose has thorns, which calls back to her knife-winged butterfly cutie mark. And we have one last character to visit from Rose's universe. This guy is why I had to hold off on introducing the main arc of the story that Flower is involved in. This is Blue Blaze. I made him while messing around on The Famous Pony Creator and decided I needed to keep him. And then I set him up to be sacrificed to the Pegasus device. So Blaze is a massive nerd and a weak flyer because of that. He failed his flight exam and was set to be ground into rainbows. Fortunately for him, his exam happened to be the one that Flower dragged Patchup to in order to honestly emotionally torment him, I think. Patchup Patch managed to rescue both him and Rain and dragged them into the void. The void has an unstable property to it that allows living beings to shapeshift, so Patch helped Blaze shapeshift away his wings so that Flower couldn't use twisted, weak Pegasus logic on him anymore, and saved his life. Blaze is naturally distraught about this and prefers to stay as an Earth pony. He always hated flying, and I have allowed his hatred of both his wings and flying to carry over into his new story. He'll have shapeshifted his wings away in his human form as well. I think this story will mostly stay the same. I do like it a lot. It's just that big question of what in the world would make Rose want to kill him in this universe? And again, I'm not sure. Maybe he'll have seen something he wasn't supposed to, and him not being a fan of his wings isn't plot relevant. We'll see, that feels a little cheap. Blaze is actually one of the first void ponies I turned into a human. He's had basically a solid human design since 2019, it looks like. And a name. His name is Barry, and the scarf he wears is not optional. And that brings us to our final character. I said at the start that I was doing this from the order of easiest to remove the pony influence from to hardest, and I just said I'm so stumped with the Rainbow Factory plotline, so what could possibly be harder to remove the pony influence from than that? Well, simple. I don't plan to remove the pony side of this character. In fact, she's already appeared in the Fault Side Tap. That's the multiverse story these characters are for, by the way. In her pony form. Look, there she is! And that's because Eclipse was always a human. From the start. Eclipse, also known as Alice, is actually a contender for my first trans OC. It's a toss-up between her and a character from my main webcomic, Sybil, as I made them both in the same year, and I have no idea which one actually came first. And yes, this never came up in the Void Ponies blog, but she was always planned to be a trans woman and was always originally a human. She was born basically into our world, save for the canonical multiverse connected to it. My Little Pony was a TV show for her, and she was a fedora-donning brony. She was pre-transition and struggling with dysphoria and social isolation due to only recently coming to terms with her gender identity. Then, one day, she finds a crack in her universe that leads to the Void. And I already mentioned that the Void has unstable properties, so she found a way to shapeshift herself the body that she's always wanted, and since she really had nothing to lose from her original universe, she decided to spend her time exploring the multiverse instead. When poking her head into so many universes, it was only a matter of time until she stumbled onto the pony cluster and just decided to stay there. She shapeshifted herself into what was probably her canonical pony Sona and stayed put right in the middle of the ponyverses. She'd pop into them occasionally for supplies and slowly accumulated a little band of misfits who also had reasons to leave their home universes for good. She's the unofficial leader of the Void Ponies, and she's great at making people feel welcome and appreciated. She is officially the alt design now because it is my personal favorite fashion genre, and so I'm really happy with her current design. Her colors are electric blue, and I changed her hair because her original hair color was really gross. I'm very happy with the changes I made to her. I love purple, I love alt, she was made for me. Can you tell I'm just freestyling this because I forgot to write a little blurb about the design choices I made with her character. I gave her little eclipses on her sleeves and socks. I love her design, I think it's my favorite of the batch. And yeah, I really plan to keep her story the way that it was. She'll show up in the Fault Side Tap as both a human and a pony, depending on how much she misses having hands, and she and the others in this video will remain dwellers in the space between universes. You can call her Eclipse or Alice, she goes by both. I mean, obviously, she'll have to be called something other than a My Little Pony pony, but I think that this story is one where the connection to My Little Pony is too important to remove. And that's the little band of multiversal misfits. I actually found a base edit of a version of them as humans that I made in 2015 that I completely forgot about. And for ease of comparison of where they started versus where they are now, I redid that base art. I think it's so fun just to see how far my art and character design skills have come since I made this. Their stories have, for all intents and purposes, remained similar enough that the logic behind my outfit designs now should have still fit the characters back in 2015, and yet they all look completely different, and the original designs are just boring and very color-clashing t-shirts and jeans mostly. They're very generic, except for past me giving Eclipse a Pink Floyd sweatshirt. That is a galaxy-brained idea, and I will be stealing that for the future. I hope now it's easier to tell what their deals are just at a glance. I really love these characters, and I've kept them in my mind for over 10 years now. So I'm so happy I finally found what I hope will eventually become their forever home. And if you want to see them, check out the Fold Side Tap. It's on Tumblr, Webtoon, and Comic Fury. It's an Ask blog, which means you can talk to them directly. It updates when I have free time mostly, so updates are slow, but they're still coming. Okay, but also, tell me about your My Little Pony OCs. I bared my soul to you all by showing off some of the cringiest OCs I've ever made, so now it's your turn. If you could turn your old My Little Pony OCs from middle school or high school or whatever into humans, how do you think you'd do that? And thank you for watching! If you liked this video, please consider subscribing. If this video does well, I may do some old comic readings in the future. Check out my socials and webcomics. Those are all linked in the description. Oh, and I'm open to video suggestions. I'm still trying to get the workflow down, so ideas help me get the ball rolling ASAP, so videos aren't... Well, this script was finished 5 days after the full video was supposed to be posted, for example. So yeah, I think that's all. Read more webcomics, and I'll see you next time. Bye! I'm tracking myself with my webcam instead of my iPhone, and boy, is it gonna be rough. I'm scared to look at the recording. Okay, bye.